Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club. If you're at all interested in anything we talk about in this episode, go ahead and check out the description down below, or if you even just want to know more about us, click on the links below. Now on to the episode.
Yeah,
Hey.
Coffee Experts Club. Good to see you, Mr. Clatterbuck.
Good to be here on this fine Friday.
Well,
Friday
Friday for us, but
Friday.
who knows when our listeners are listening? I think we drop on Tuesdays or something, right? Crazy. So if it's Friday on a Tuesday for you, we hope you enjoy all the things that Friday entails. For us, that's Pirate Friday. You know, we do a lot of shiver me timbers on Pirate Fridays. Pizza Friday,
Pizza
I hope
Friday.
if you could enjoy pizza and pirates on Tuesday and call it Friday, I hope that you enjoy that.
Happy day of the week that it is for you.
Yes, our infamous co-host Drew Moody, I think, is probably absorbed in the construction remodel project down in Belize. We're moving our headquarters, our location number 1 flagship store, across the street, thankfully, not too far. But I know we're trying to get that done within the next couple of weeks. So it's been a little bit of melee of Drew, it's 2 hours ahead, texting me, messaging me early in the morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock, wanting answers on how to dial in things. So, it's been a little bit of cluster over there. So anyway, Coffee Experts, thank you for joining us today, me and Ben. Last week, we talked to you guys about Ben's tool that he created for Roasters Coffee. Roasters was a 15-store outfit, by the time that they sold to BlackRock and were absorbed within the empire. Ben at his height was overseeing all 15 stores of the managers that are there and the regionals that rolled up, all those rolled up into Ben, and would help make a lot of strategic decisions on POS platforms, pricing structures, how we determined the profitability on drinks. Yep. And so he created a tool that's a pretty badass tool. And then he rolled it down into a little bit simpler form because that one was pretty crazy. That one had so many crazy items. This one's a little bit simpler. And we made that tool free to you last week for being a podcast listener. So menu.coffeeexpertsacademy.com, you can get that tool to determine pricing structure and how you should determine your pricing. We thought it would be a great thing to do a follow-up show today on profitability. And how do you determine profitability? Because what the tool won't tell you necessarily is how profitable should my drinks be. It's going to kind of rely on you to go out and do some competition research and what are other people charging? And then what is it actually costing me? And then wrestle through the hard questions of, okay, what do I want each drink to actually turn out to be? But we all obviously really advocate for profit. We want you to be profitable. Like we want you as a coffee business not to be scraping by. We obviously want to meet the customer's needs of making sure it makes sense in the market. But at the same time, we want to make sure you're profitable because that's how businesses sustain. That's how people stay alive. So anyway, I thought we could talk today, Ben, on the show about profitability and how we determine it based upon the drink.
Yeah, I mean, one of the one of the reasons to be in the business, right? Where this isn't just a non-profit coffee shop we're making here. It's about making a little bit of money along the way.
They're cheaper hobbies. They're cheaper hobbies. That's why I always tell people when we're in profitability conversations and we start looking at people's books and it starts to look bad, I'm like, hey, so we've got to make some decisions. Either you cut your costs, either you raise your price. But there are much less stressful, cheaper hobbies. Like you don't want business to be a hobby. So let's make sure it's profitable. Let's make sure it's doing what it needs to do.
Yep. Yeah, and I would say your profitability is going to be, it's obviously going to differ for every company, right? Like it's going to determine, or it's going to be determined by, do you lease your locations? Do you own your locations? How many locations do you have? What state are you operating in? Where your employer taxes, what rates are those? So a lot of it's going to differ, and you kind of have to, you have to come at that with your eyes open. Typically the rule of thumb that we always ran by, and when it comes to setting your menu prices was, essentially 300, we're looking to take home 300%. And what I mean by that is if the drink cost me $1, and this was, again, the whole reason why the tool was created in the first place was we need to know exactly how much we're making. If the drink cost me $1, and I've got that because I've used the tool and I've got it down to a T, then I want to charge $4 so I can cover my costs and make those $3. That's essentially the rule of thumb that we live by. For us, that worked because it was a profit based on our COGS, but also there's other things you have to think about there. There's your leases, there's your buildings, there's your utilities, all of your operating licenses. Like those aren't just baked in. So you have to, that 300% kind of covered all of those and gave us a profit. So that was the rule of thumb we kind of lived by. And whenever we did a price increase, we would kind of keep that in mind. Okay, well, how much are we having to raise prices to hit this 300% threshold?
So to Ben, and I love that. I love like, yes, like what you hear every like financial advisor say, like, we do not give like financial, like whatever it is. Like, we're not here
We
to
can't
give
give
you like,
legal financial
right,
advice.
we're not here to give you legal financial advice on this show, but I would say like, get to know your numbers, be familiar with your numbers. Like the tool,
Mhm.
this is not your whole profit loss statement, but this is just your COGS, right? This is just your cost of goods. But there's only so many things you can make money doing at a coffee shop. You're probably not offering services, you know what I mean, where
Mhm.
you're able to charge for services. You've got a product. And like I know a lot of coffee shops, we would really recommend find a vendor that you're going to source to for your pastries so you're not having to do a bunch of stuff in-house where you're building things. Otherwise, do you want to be a restaurant? I know when we interviewed Coffee Culture some episodes back, that the owner there talked about, they got really deep into food for a while, and then they started asking themselves, is this what we want to be doing? Like, are
Yeah.
we a restaurant? You know, there's restaurant comes with its own pain points, you know, like how can we get really clear on this is how we make money and we make good coffee, and so this is the profitability. So Ben, I really like the whole idea, like know your numbers, but also have a bar. Like typically, like you said, I'm going to 3x my number. I'm going to, whatever it is that you're going to use, like a static, just no thought, just go to do it.
Mhm.
So my question for you is, maybe some of our listeners today are listening and they're thinking, wow, man, that's really going to change some of my dynamics, or really going to change some of my pricing structures. Would you say across the board, all drinks is just like a 3x, like as they're looking at their menu and they're thinking about how to make costs? Or would you say, no, that's like throttle, like let's throttle it a little
Mhm.
bit, like
Mhm.
apply the gas here, apply the brake here? Because I do think like, we don't want to give people sticker shock, right? We don't want to give
Sure.
people just like a heart attack when they pull up and they've already ordered their drink and they're going to pay and they're like, "What? You changed the
Yep.
price?" Because people don't read, right? People don't remember what they paid last time until you hit them with a charge at the register. So maybe talk to
Yep.
that a little bit.
I mean, I think it's a good baseline or starting point. So
Yeah.
if you're just if you're opening your first location and you're like, I don't even know how much I should charge for my drinks, I've never done this before. Start
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Like if you have a rough idea of how much your drink costs, which you should, if you're starting a location,
Yeah.
you should know that, okay, I'm buying the product for probably about this much. I should sell it for that 300%. That's where I would start, and that's the basis of your menu. From there, though, you've got a lot of options. One of the things we did for the longest time is we had a $1 Americano,
Right.
$1 12-ounce Americano. It totally didn't fit within the pricing scheme whatsoever, but it was a loss leader.
Yeah.
And our first location was across the street from a college. And we had so many students come in and get their $1 Americano. And obviously, this was 2009. So
Yeah.
that can't exist anymore.
Right.
But it was a loss leader and it attracted people. And they would come in the morning, and then they would probably come in the afternoon and get something else. So I think starting with your baseline, determine, okay, do I have a loss leader? What can I do to attract people? Do I have something on my menu? For example, when we started doing our own energy drinks, we talk about that all the time. That just dropped the floor on our cost. Is there
Yeah.
something that is so cheap for me that for us, that energy drink, we were actually making like 6, 7, 8x on it because it was so
Yeah.
cheap for us? Do you
Yeah.
have something like that where you could undercut your competition? I think a lot of coffee shop owners, they put the menu on the wall and they say, that's the price. And then maybe once a year I'll raise prices because minimum wage is going up. And that's the only thought that goes into it. When really you should be thinking about, okay, what is my competition doing? Do I have a loss leader that I can use to attract people? Do I have the really low cost item that I can drop the price point on so that I can undercut my competition? It takes a lot of time to think about where are the dollar bills coming from? What are my most popular items? You
Right.
have, your top 3 most popular items. What's your profit margin on those? For us, for the longest time, one of our most popular drinks, it's probably the same for every coffee shop, is a blended drink.
Yeah.
It was a large blended drink. And those things are so expensive to make because of that big train of using that, or ice cream and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, they would just barely hit our margins. So whenever we raised prices, that was the first thing I went to. It's like, we have to raise prices on this because if a penny goes up anywhere else, then
Yeah.
we're not making the margin that we want on that. So you have to it takes some time to think about and look over your menu. If you're on bar, you don't really have a lot of time to do that. So go back and listen to a few episodes where we talk about not being on bar.
Right.
But you need to take the time to think about all of these different variations and all these aspects that affect your menu.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. This last week, what really, in all honesty, spawned the conversation today. Even we had just done the menu conversation last week, and we had a client, or a customer drive through one of the drive throughs down in Belize, that ordered a bunch of drinks for his kids. Got some small milkshakes. Like take out the caffeine, minus the caffeine or whatever. It's like a milkshake, and got several milkshakes for his kids, and all of them were alternate milk. And we, at Coffee to This Myas, we just have like a normal base that we tack on if you want alternate milk. But
Hmm.
we didn't take into consideration what that might mean for a small milkshake. Like there are just some things that it might not just work straight across the board. And the guy
Hmm.
reached out to me and he was up in arms about how much he had just spent on milkshakes with alternative milks. So Drew and I had to really go back and look at it and see, does it make sense on something like a milkshake that doesn't have as much going into it, to then tack on just a blanket,
Hmm.
X amount of dollars for an alternative milk. Maybe do you want to speak to that? Because I know you and I had some good conversations around alternative milks.
Yeah, it's in the tool, which if you go to menu.coffeeexpertsacademy.com,
Yeah.
there's a data tab, and you can input how much that ingredient costs. So for me,
Yeah.
what I did was I said, okay, we get soy milk in a 32-ounce carton. That means, and it's this price. That means every ounce of soy milk costs me this much.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. So say every ounce of soy milk costs me 10 cents. And the 12-ounce soy latte is going to have what, 8-9 ounces ish of soy milk.
Yeah.
And then just do the math.
Yeah.
And whatever that math is, does that fit with how much you're charging? Because a 12-ounce soy latte is a lot different than a 32-ounce soy latte. And if all
Right.
you're charging is 45 cents extra or 50 cents extra or $1 extra for soy milk, does that translate across all sizes?
Yeah.
Most likely not. You're most
Well, that's
likely losing money on the soy latte that's a 32 ounce, and you're maybe gaining a little bit more money on the 12-ounce soy latte. Like, these are the things you have to think about when you're doing your menu pricing. I love what Starbucks has done, where they just absorbed the alternative milk cost into every drink. They obviously, we were talking about it, they obviously, because they're a huge corporation, have a bunch of guys sit in a room and say, hey, these are how many soy lattes we sell in a year. These are
right.
how many other drinks we sell in a year. Can we have those other drinks just subsidize the soy by raising the price on everything and saying, hey, we actually don't charge you for alternative milk. You don't get charged here. Yes, you do. Everything costs 3 cents more across the board, but
Right.
it feels good to the consumer. There's no sticker shock when you
Yeah.
get a soy latte and it's $3 extra and you're like, what the heck?
Right.
I really like that. And I think if more coffee shop owners thought like that when it comes to raising prices and their menus, there's some really creative things that you could do where you say, hey, instead of charging 10 people 75 cents for soy milk, why don't we charge everybody 1 penny? And then it makes everybody feel better.
Oh, no, that's good. That's good. I like that. Let's go back over it. Go through the tool, right? Because you need to know where your costs are at. Come up with a bar, like 3x, whatever your bar is,
Mm-hmm.
and battle test it, right? Ask yourself, is that going to make sense? Hold it up against your competitors. Make sure that you're not going to blow the doors off
Yep.
and you're $2 or $3 more expensive than the guy down the street. That's going to eat you alive, right? So be thinking about, how much should it cost me? What's my bar? Like, as I do the multiplier, is this all make sense based upon my competition? Ask yourself, does a rising tide have to lift all ships when it comes to pricing on my menu? Could there be
Yep.
some where if you wanted to work with us at indiecoffeecoalition.com, we help, or Indie Coffee Co., I think is what it is, indiecoffee.co. Well, either of those will get you there, to take a look at, could we be using a cheaper solution for our energy drink and our blending powder mix? Because we do white label over at Indie, or if you want to create your own, we help people with that too at drinkworks.coffee. So I think that, ask yourself, are there things that I actually am making like a much higher percentage on,
Mm-hmm.
that I could maybe couch some of the cost in that, or drop that down to make that really be a screaming deal, so that even as prices lift, we know we do a lot of energy drinks, we could really stoke people out. Maybe use that as, like you guys were using the dollar Americano back in the day. Is
Mm-hmm.
there a pricing structure that we could do that would blow competition out of the water, that's using somebody else up the street that's more expensive? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that really thinking through, are there loss leaders? Are there things that you could do that would be, making your menu something that would be more appealing to your audience? And then more than anything, have a strategy, right? Like, how do we know what we're going to lift it by this upcoming year? I know that Wes kind of had a rule of thumb where he would raise everything by a quarter, right? Wasn't that kind of the jam? Raise
Yep.
it by a quarter each time. And if you do that gradually, if you're raising by a quarter at some sort of incremental time, then it doesn't necessarily feel as heavy. You want to talk about that a little bit, Ben, and how maybe a raise by a quarter or a raise by some sort of incremental amount so that you don't have to do this exercise every single time you're doing a price raise. Maybe it's the once a year you're doing it, or
Mhm.
every couple of years just checking in and making sure it's still relevant.
Yeah, I would. The reason why we did that is because all of our drinks were value added taxes, so we didn't add tax on top of our drink. It was built into the price, and everything was in 25-cent increments. It just made cash handling easier.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is that pigeonholed us into, if we ever wanted to raise prices, the minimum was 25 cents. So
Right.
there was a lot of times where we could have probably gotten away with raising prices by 15 cents, 9 cents, 10 cents. But we were stuck in that just with cash. But the point does remain, though, doing it incrementally and in small amounts like that is much, much less painful. I mean, how do you boil a frog? You throw it in a cold pot of water and you slowly
Right.
turn up the heat, right? The same goes for a consumer. You don't want to, and we've talked about it tons of times, wait 3 years before you raise prices, and all of a sudden your $1 12-ounce Americano is $2.75, because
Right.
that hurts.
Yeah.
But a dollar Americano, the next year is $1.10. Next year after that, it's $1.25. It's a little bit more palatable by the consumer. I would say, honestly, if you're thinking about raising prices, just look at what's the current rate of inflation. How much are your COGS going up? How much is your minimum wage going up? You can get a roundabout percentage point. All of my costs have gone up about 11% this year, or they've gone up about 10%, whatever it may be. And if you can factor that into your price increase on a regular basis, I think it makes it much more easy for the consumer than if you do it all at once, because consumers like consistency. And it may sound counterintuitive to say they're going to like me consistently raising prices every year. They may not like it, but it'll become a routine and they'll get used to it. It won't stand out. The last thing you want to do with anything when it comes to raising prices is stand out. Like, we want to make this as easy for you to digest, as palatable. We don't want you to notice that you're having to pay more because it sucks. And the last thing you want to do is people come to the window, they're like, this sucks. You're like, well, I mean, everybody's doing it. If everybody's been raising their prices for the last 3 years and you haven't, and all of a sudden you go from $3 to $6 and they've been going incrementally, you are the coffee shop that people are gonna be like, don't go over there, it's expensive. They've forgotten how much they're paying it everywhere else. But if they come to you one day and the next day it's $3 more, you're gonna be the one that stands out, which sucks for you. But definitely incrementally, I would say, in today's day and age, the way that prices and costs are going up, you might have to make that like every 6 months. Let's look at price. And a smart thing to do would be get digital menus, so you don't have to keep buying new menus and replacing them.
Yeah, that's good. Ben, do you think, I know that, this past year that we've seen a lot of stiff rise due to tariffs in coffee, like green coming across the line. And that's affecting roasters. Roasters are affecting coffee shops, whether they roast themselves or they roast, or they buy from a roaster. Obviously, those costs all rolls downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say something like that? What would be your advice on, do you, man, just take it in the jaw for a window of time to see if pricing is going to settle back down so you're not reactive to a market jar
Mm-hmm.
like tariffs or something that may be like that may not be the long-term thing, and don't rock the boat? And do you have like a gauge of time that maybe you would consider waiting if it was you making decisions?
I mean, I feel like we have the green coffee conversation like once every 5 years.
Yeah.
It's always more expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, since we started roasting, we've never seen coffee commodity prices go back down to where they were. Like,
Right.
it will always increase. So I think just like everything else that you're purchasing for your coffee shop, those prices are going to always go up. And unless there's some sort of catastrophic event where we have huge negative inflation, costs will always go up.
Yeah.
So I think, you can try and not rock the boat too much there, but it's just like your cups, your paper cups, they're always going up. So you can try and hold off on raising prices, but again, you're going to get stuck with, okay, how long do you hold off before you start sticker shocking, consumers?
Yeah.
I would say if you can eat some of it, great, as long as you're keeping that 3x margin. If I can eat the cost of my coffee and maybe of the beans and maybe offset that somehow by having that super, super low cost energy drink, and that can absorb some of the costs I'm paying extra for coffee because I sell so many energy drinks and I'm making 6-7x on that drink. If I can absorb some of that rising cost in the coffee in that product, that's great. I would do that. But not everybody has that ability. And if you don't, you probably should come up with that ability.
It's good. It's good. Well, coffee experts, I hope that you enjoyed the show today. I hope that you're actually going to take us up on it. Make sure you do check out menu.coffeeexpertsacademy.com for that tool. Coffee Experts Academy, too. Just let's talk about that for a quick minute. That tool is just one in a plethora of tools that we offer every single set of modules within the Academy, where these are tools that we've designed for big name coffee shops out there. And we really want to make available to the little guy. A lot of franchise packages out there come with these kind of tools. The downside for an indie is that they don't get access to that. So we thought, well, why don't we just make that accessible? So Coffee Experts Academy, 35 different modules, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And then we give away tools like this. So this is just one of the tools inside of what we offer at Coffee Experts Academy. We'd really strongly encourage you to check that out. And, we'd love to help you. If you want some free content, you can also check out myfirstdrive-through.coffee. It's a masterclass we did. We did 3 hours of content and then gave you a bunch of stuff there as well. So if you're just looking for some good content to consume, check out each one of those things. Ben, thank you so much for your time today, brother. And
Yes,
we'll
sir.
see you, Coffee Experts, next week here on Coffee Experts Club.
Thanks, guys.